Game 1, NBA Finals, Wednesday, September 30th, and we are live, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, as we will be each and every weekday of the NBA Finals. That means the next show will be this Friday, October 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV. We got Game 1 tonight on Wednesday, Heat Lakers, Game 2 on Friday, and they'll be back next Tuesday for Game 4. No show on Sunday, but we'll take an advanced look at that on the Friday show, obviously. So today, Wednesday, Friday, and next Tuesday, every time there's an NBA Finals, we're live, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV for NBA Tip-Off. Let me bring in the usual suspects, as always, here from WagerTalk.com. Tony Finn, Teddy Covers, and Rob Vino. Guys, it's been a few days, been almost a week since we last talked last Friday, been 5 days to be exact. We've had 2 conference finals finish out since we last talked. So I think what I want to do is real quickly, a couple minutes for each of you, just recap, your thoughts on those 2 conference finals. And then, of course, we're going to dig in deep into the NBA Finals Game 1. We're going to take a look at the side in total. Also want to look at the MVP props, if you have any thoughts on that. And then also maybe some play-on-play against guys as we do for all these big games from a player prop perspective. But Tony Finn, I'll start with you. How's the week been going? And just your closing thoughts on Boston and Denver RIP.
It's a good week. It's a good day. It's a good week. As long as I'm here to bother you, Teddy, and Rob, it's a good day. It's a good week, and hopefully I'm here tomorrow. As far as my weeks went, I've been successful so far. I swept in baseball yesterday, so it's a nice start to the postseason. We haven't had any basketball since when was the last game? Saturday or so with the Lakers or with Miami, wherever the case may be. But the basketball has been pretty good this year, and I look forward to these finals. I really look forward to as square as I could be. Or square as it sounds, the finals are my favorite. It's not necessarily the masses, the games in abundance, as it is seeing the drama and the soap opera that is the NBA unfold into these 7 games.
Yeah, and Teddy, since we last spoke on Friday, we've had the Heat eliminate the Celtics. We had the Lakers take care of business against the Nuggets, the Nuggets, the Nuggets, whatever you want to call them. But a great run. By the way, guys, I'm going to forget to mention, it's the first time in NBA Finals history that neither team was in the playoffs the year before. So isn't it appropriate, Teddy, that happens in the year of the bubble? Probably not a total coincidence, right?
It is wholly appropriate. That being said, the Lakers didn't make the playoffs last year, and they made a whole bunch of changes to make the playoffs this year. And Miami last year, coming into the season, the Heat were certainly viewed as a playoff team, not a finals team. The Lakers were. So Miami is the clear upstart here, and they're the clear upstart in the betting markets as well. Although the Heat have taken a fair bit of money on the series price. Lakers opening in the minus 450 range, so even higher at some spots. And for the series right now, I'm seeing Lakers as, minus 314 is low. Minus 350 is the prevailing number. You can check out, of course, the WagerTalk or SportsMemo live odds page every day. It's one of those pages you might want to keep open throughout the course of the day. But we have seen money on Miami for the series. When it comes to the closeout games, look, Miami-Boston is basically what we saw, the microcosm of what we saw in the entire series, which was the Heat playing better down the stretch, getting the defensive stops and executing their offense during crunch time. And that's how they pulled away to beat Boston in Game 6 of that one. And then, of course, on the other side of the equation, I don't know if you guys were watching. I'm sure you guys were. I shouldn't say I don't know if you were watching. But did you see the look in LeBron's eye down the stretch of that fourth quarter? LeBron had that I'm not going to lose look in his eyes that I haven't seen, that maximum intensity. And, LeBron down the stretch against Denver in that Game 5 was pretty amazing. He was, like he's supposed to be the best player in basketball. And if Miami gets that version of the Lakers, where the intensity is jacked up and LeBron's playing like there's no way I'm going to let this team lose, Lakers are going to win this series. If they don't get LeBron with that max intensity, and of course the role players for the Lakers played very, very well in Game 5 of that series. That's something too that they will need to get past the Heat in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and Teddy, we're going to get to the NBA Finals props or MVP, especially here later in the show. But LeBron is minus money right now. I've seen him around minus 160. Anthony Davis as high as 3-1, which I think is something that's interesting to talk about later. But you're right, Teddy. If LeBron has that playoff intensity, I think that's why he is favored right now for the MVP odds. And we saw him turn it on, of course, when he was guarding Jamal Murray there in the fourth quarter of that Game 4 before they clinched in Game 5 as well. Going to bring in Ski Profit here in a moment as well. But first, Rob Bean, I want to get your closing thoughts on the conference finals and how the week's been going for you.
Yeah, well, week's been good. NFL, good once more. And they've changed us here, Steve. We get to this a little bit later, but we're no longer $11 Thursday. We're $11 Wednesday. So we're hoping to come through this week as $11 Wednesday. Starting with Boston and Miami, I think Teddy said it best. Although I will say that Boston is the team that had really turned it on late third quarter, early fourth quarter of that game, and they're off to the 96-90 lead. They were, extending margin to start the fourth quarter, and the next thing you know, Miami's on that huge 29-8 run where they basically didn't miss a shot, any possession down the floor. They scored, and as the game wore on, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and Boston in the end was the loser. So Miami once again showed through with their toughness, showed through with their ability to score in so many different ways out of so many different guys. And for the Lakers, I'll point out one more time because we pointed it out quite a bit during this series, but they shot tremendously in that series for a team that was not a good shooting team overall during the season, for a team that entered the bubble and had plenty of question marks surrounding their ability to shoot the basketball for quite some time into the first round and maybe even extended from there. They shoot 54% in that game. They shoot 50% for the series. And as Teddy said, if Los Angeles is going to shoot 50% from the series, I don't think you're going to beat them. Question is, can they do that again? Was that a product of a tired Denver team that was off of 2 extended 7-game series and then, of course, having to play the number 1 seed? We're going to find out. But as you said earlier, Steve, or somebody said Miami's taking money in this series. And I'll just note real quick that I power rated this at about 3.5. It opened 5.5. So maybe guys are just taking some perceived value in the line for this finals.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence. The point spread for Game 1 has dropped a bit. And as Teddy mentioned, the series price has dropped substantially 50 to 100 cents in some spots. I think one of the reasons, of course, is that the public bets the finals more than any other round, and the public likes to take plus money. They're not going to necessarily go out and lay 1-4, but they'll take a flyer at 3-1. So I think you get a little lopsided action for that reason. And I'll admit, I when I first saw the line at over 4-1, my initial thought was that Miami could win this series. I mean, we've seen them play extremely well. But we'll dig deeper into the matchups. I think there's some good matchups for each team and also some bad ones we'll discuss. But, Ski, I got to get your thoughts on your Lakers. They're in the NBA Finals. What were your thoughts on the conference finals overall, closing out this past weekend since we last talked, Ski, and how's the week been going for you?
Well, the week has been going well for me. I've won 7 of my last 8. And I'm very excited for the Lakers to be back in the finals. Hasn't been this way since I was in high school, so it's exciting. And for the Miami Heat, kind of expected them to, at some point, take advantage of the Celtics. It's going to be a great series. You've heard me come on here and say that the Lakers are going to take care of every team easily. I think Miami Heat offered a challenge, and I don't think Lakers can just run over them.
Yeah, no, speaking of high school, Tony Finn, when the Minneapolis Lakers were in the finals, I think you were in high school, correct?
Yeah, and the Cincinnati Royals, too, when I was in high school. Before, that was back when I was watching the best players in the world play.
Anthony Davis would have been playing for the New Orleans Jazz to start his career, correct? So we got a little bit of all that.
It wasn't even a New Orleans team, yeah.
Tony, let me get your thoughts. So Teddy mentioned about the series prices dropping.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that overall? I think part of the reason is probably because a lot of people aren't going to go out there and lay the 1-4, 1-4.5, and they're probably just getting some one-way action. But what are your thoughts on that series price overall?
Well, I think I think your assessment's accurate, and what Teddy said earlier is true as well. But listen, the Lakers won the first 2. The Lakers are favored to win the series for good reason. Bam had his way with the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion. I don't know that everybody would agree with that, but I was very vocal. I thought he was a key to them beating Boston. But he's going to be hard-pressed to duplicate that level of success against not only Anthony Davis, but I think we're going to see a little more Dwight Howard too, and to equal what Rondo has contributed. And the Lakers have to be a little more consistent with their third option, their third scoring option. I think that the only listen. I think the Lakers are a better team, more talented team. I should say I think the Heat are playing better. I think they're playing more cohesive. I think they have more passion. There's chemistry. They're united to say. I'm not saying the Lakers aren't, but I'm saying the Lakers seem much more scattered as a group. We get a contribution from one side, the other side, whether it be whoever it might be. So my thoughts are, there's no reason why that a logical man would bet Miami to win the series. I mean, Teddy said it. You said it. They're the better. You got to stop one of the two big guys, and I think there's some advantages for Heat here, but not to stop one of those two. I think those two are going to get theirs. I think they win it in other ways.
Teddy, you brought up the series price. I mean, what would you make an accurate number? Do you think the opening number or the current number is more accurate? And go ahead and dive into game one for me as well.
Well, certainly, along with Tony, and Tony said his power rating number was 3.5 on the game. Mine's even shorter than that. So, but my power rating versus the market power rating in the Heat has been off for most of the playoffs, and it's served me okay. So I'm not saying, all right, the markets are here with Miami, but I have them power rated a couple of points higher. That differential is not a differential I'm looking to correct right now. That's certainly not coming in to the series. Now, the Lakers have the pedigree, obviously, and you have LeBron James certainly has ample finals experience, and LeBron hits 15 to 25 from the floor and gets 16 rebounds and 10 assists like he had in the closeout game against Denver. If LeBron plays at that level and the supporting cast steps up in any way for the Lakers, they're going to win the series. The question is whether Jimmy Butler and company are capable of designing a defense that contains LeBron and makes everyone else, because that's what it is for the Lakers. Say what you want about Anthony Davis and his superstar, and Davis's 2 threes in that game were both huge, as well as the 2 from Danny Green. But I'm fascinated to see how Miami attacks and approaches the 3-headed monster with Davis and Howard. And I don't know if McGee gets a whole lot of playing time, but certainly with Davis and Howard in the low post. Bam Adebayo is not someone who we trust to bang with the Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis of the world. We like Bam because he's quicker than a lot of the big men that he faces, and he can make plays in the low post against mediocre defenders. You're not going to find that in the front court for the LA Lakers. So there are definite advantages for LA. We have seen Jimmy Butler and LeBron James face off 34 times in their respective NBA careers. And the number here shocked me because Jimmy Butler has played for bad teams throughout. All right, the Bulls when they were awful and the T-Wolves when they were awful. I mean, he played the last year and a half on the Sixers and the Heat, who was competitive. But the first 8 years of his career, he was on one lottery team after the next. Whereas LeBron's been playing for titles throughout, and yet 17 wins, 17 losses. Butler versus LeBron. He has had some success against him. Last but not least, I got a quote. Got to give the quote.
Love it.
Jimmy Butler, quote, "We're going to have to play damn near perfect because they're such a good team and they do so many things well. Obviously, the star power they have. We're not going to back down, though. We're going to lock into this film. We're going to be ready to go. I think it will be some must-see TV." And as a general assessment of the series, I think it's going to be competitive. All right. I'm hearing, there's guys in the chat saying the Lakers are going to sweep. I'm expecting one competitive game after the next. This does not look to me like a series that's going to be filled with even zigzag-wise. I think it's going to be tight finish, tight finish, tight finish. Whoever's able to execute down the stretch is going to win this series.
Yeah, no, Rob Vino, what are your thoughts here on game one? You've had some great number on the Heats about their 106, going into that weekend. We're talking about how they'd scored basically 106 in every one of their playoff games, but one, starting with the Milwaukee series. The Lakers have gotten, I think, to 110, 7 of their last 9, Rob. What are your thoughts on the matchups here in game one?
Well, I don't think that Los Angeles can prevent Miami from getting to 106 in any game. I really don't. So if you just take that for what it's worth numerically, you start looking at totals, right? Especially if you think Los Angeles is the better team. But I'll just, again, Teddy has said numerous times about head coach Eric Spoelstra's love for breaking down film. I have no doubt that, we could list Laker advantages all we want, but there's Miami advantages to be had here as well. And I think it might start with athleticism that LA man for man, I don't believe has. I mean, what we've seen recently out of Tyler Hero, who was maybe perceived regular season not anywhere near the player that he is, with his ability to get to the rim whenever he wants, basically, to rebound from the guard position the way that he does. I don't think these were assets that were listed for a player like Tyler Hero as recently as bubble games. So you have a three-headed monster at guard where Dragic, Duncan Robinson, and Tyler Hero, once again, this three-point line is going to cause the Lakers no end of headaches, in my estimation. Denver was not an extremely good three-point shooting team where when it comes to having multiple guys who can light it up, right? We've talked for the better part of 2 weeks now. If it's not Hero, it could be Robinson. If it's not Robinson, it could be Dragic. These guards are tough. And the Lakers have a different set of guards. I know Danny Green is a good defender and Rondo's a good defender, but these guys are tough to guard. And I think for Miami, maybe the advantage that they have is in the quickness, is in the athleticism. Overall, 1 through 8. I think Spoelstra will take advantage of that. But it's not easy because in saying that, you could counter right away by saying the Lakers are best when they run as well. So I think you might have that type of finals, guys. For Miami, in my estimation, it comes down to making three-pointers and, at least neutralizing LA on the boards. They have to rebound well in this series. They can't get crushed on the boards. And otherwise, I think they have a lot of characteristics to make this a real competitive series against the spread-wise. I still think the Lakers in a 7-game series are the first team to 4. But, we're betting games against point spreads here. And unless you're playing money line every game, but with point spreads, I think Miami makes this pretty competitive.
Yeah, and Ski, I got to get your thoughts. You're our inside Laker fan here, and you follow them as close as anybody. First of all, do you think the current series price, which has dropped, as Teddy said, it was about 4.5 to 1, now it's 3.5 to 1, take back about 3 to 1 on the Heat. Do you think that's more accurate than the opener? And what are your thoughts overall on this series, Ski?
I think that it's more accurate than the opener, yes. And I wanted to say, first of all, I couldn't believe it hearing Tony finally give the Lakers some credit. I just had to mention that. I loved it, Tony. And can the Heat defend the Lakers? I heard that question from one or two people on this panel, and my answer is no, they can't. And I heard Teddy say that they're going to focus on LeBron if they can stop LeBron, but I don't think he's just the key. I mean, LeBron has been great versus the Heat, but the key is Anthony Davis, because if they play man-to-man, tell me you can't just see LeBron hunting Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson all night. And if they play zone, Anthony Davis is, a lot of teams don't have a player like Anthony Davis who's 6'11", who can get the ball a lot easier in the middle at the free throw line. And, that's where he's best at, in my opinion. So I don't think that they can defend the Lakers at all. And I agree with what Rob said, that it's advantages for Miami as well. And I think the more that they start to exploit those mismatches, such as maybe like Dragic Bam pick and roll versus Dwight Howard, then you start to get some more of those open three-point looks. And that is definitely the key for Miami to beat the Lakers. But just in general, the Lakers, they're solid defending the three. And they have length to back them up, so they can run guys off of the three-point line and have the big guys backing them up. It's going to be an interesting series here. I think the point that I agree with the most is the Lakers are not necessarily going to stop the Heat to get to 106. And if you think the Lakers are going to win, you take a look at the total.
Yeah, Tony, as Rob had mentioned some other stuff, and Teddy, I'll throw it to you too. The Heat have scored 106 or more now in 10 of their last 11 since the Milwaukee series started, and the Lakers, I believe, won 10 or more in 7 of their last 9. Teddy, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, what the Lakers have gone over?
Yeah, but Ski was just saying about the total itself. Looking there, if you don't think they can stop them.
I mean, I'm certainly not looking to play an under in tonight's game. So if I'm involved in the total, I would look to the over. That said, we've seen game ones tend to be fairly loose in comparison to some of the others as the teams come up with a defensive game plan. So that would really be the only way I could look. And it's worth noting that Miami kept on going over the total and the Lakers kept on going over the total in the conference finals, despite the fact that neither of the two teams were in great rhythm with their three-point shooting. If we see three-pointers fall tonight, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this one being a relatively high-scoring affair.
Yeah, and Tony, I mean, keep in mind, what are the Lakers now? 1-2 straight-up ATS in game ones, but of course they got the win and cover against the Nuggets, who are coming off, a tough 7-game series for the second straight time. That's not the case here with the Heat, Tony. How do you think the rest factor plays here tonight? We haven't talked about that, but both teams have been off, for a good amount of days here. And another thing I want to throw out, Tony, and kind of touch on whatever you want here, but full game line, as we've mentioned, guys, is 4.5, 217.5. First half line, 311.5. So that makes the second half 1.5, 106.5. So the odds makers are pricing in Lakers to be better in the first half here. I'm just kind of curious on the thoughts there, especially since they have not exactly been world beaters in their game one so far.
Well, and it's always fun to speculate and to examine those and throw my 2 cents out on those. But for the most part, I trust the odds makers to do the best job they can as far as trying to find that median, to get the money equal on both sides. And I don't think it's going to be difficult with the Heat and the Lakers. However, this sets up pretty nicely because I think it sets up for some good NBA tip-off show drama between me and the rest of the group here, but at least from what I'm hearing from Rob and just now from Teddy, and that is if I'm Spoelstra, and what I believe is going to happen. I believe if the Heat can win this series, they do it by making the Lakers face them in half-court sets, and that LeBron does not get in transition. And if you look at pace, Rob and Teddy, they're better with numbers than me. I know the numbers, I see the numbers, and then all of a sudden the math clicks in my head. But I'm not very good at repeating the numbers. But I think the Heat played slower than anybody in the bubble, if I'm not mistaken. At least when we got to the playoffs, I believe other than one team. So I'll let somebody look at that while I'm talking. But this is what I think. Is Iggy 70% of what he was 2 years ago? Because he has the ability. The Miami Heat have a ton of bodies to throw at not only LeBron, but to throw at Anthony Davis. I think they're going to be physical. I think they're going to walk this ball up the court. I think they're going to make the Lakers play 20 seconds of defense every single possession. I think they're going to eliminate any layups in transition from the best in the business, and that's LeBron. And that's how they're going to win this team. But listen, Lakers aren't, and if the Heat win it, they're going to probably win it by using the clock, as I said, and not necessarily attacking the middle as getting open shots from the 3 points, as these guys have discussed. The Lakers, their strength, listen, Boston did a really good job on the Heat with switching wings and the bigs and preventing some easy three-point looks. That is not necessarily the Lakers' strength, in my opinion. And I anticipate if Miami wants to win this, and I believe right from the get-go, I believe tonight, I believe it's intense. And I believe Miami knows that they have to play every single possession. And I don't think that you're going to see Bam on the bench. If Anthony Davis is in the game, you're going to see Bam on the floor. I don't think they're going to concern themselves with fouls and such with Bam, because if they do such, that they're going to find themselves in trouble and behind, and maybe chasing LA rather than playing with LA. So slow pace, eliminating transition points, competing on the boards, which is going to be difficult for them to compete with LA. But more importantly, making LeBron. Listen, they want to see LeBron at the top of the key, holding the ball until there's about 6 seconds left on the clock, and then deciding where he's going to shoot from or who he's going to dish it to for the shot. And that's I believe if the Heat are going to be competitive and win this, and they can, guys, that's why they play the game. Okay, anyone can win on any given night or any given Sunday or any Thursday or Monday. While it's more difficult in 7 games, it can happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it can. And if it does, it'll be because of how I just laid this out. Because you know why? Because I'm a coach genius, right? And that's what I would do as a coach. No, because it just makes sense to me.
And Tony, I mean, you're big on Spolestra and preparation
Yes.
time. We've all kind of agreed what a great film junkie he is. So, Teddy, I'll get your thoughts on that. Tony thinks it's a slower pace. What are your thoughts?
So I just looked up the pace ratings for the postseason while Tony was talking. In Miami, slightly below average. Lakers, slightly above average. But basically, we're talking about 1% for both squads. You know, the outliers were teams like Brooklyn or Orlando, both of whom had the very fast pace, and teams like Utah and Philly, who had very slow pace, and all those teams were eliminated in the first round. So from a pace standpoint, these two teams have basically been league average. Okay. From a rebounding standpoint, an offensive effective field goal percentage standpoint, this one stood out to me because the Lakers have the best effective field goal percentage in the bubble. This side of Utah was the only team that was better than them in terms of effective field goal percentage. But when we look at who the Lakers have faced here in the postseason, Portland, Denver, Houston. Now, the Rockets actually had fairly good defensive numbers in the playoffs, but we know that Houston's not an elite defensive team. Certainly, Denver, bottom half, Portland, bottom half of playoff teams in terms of defensive efficiency. So Miami, top half. And obviously, they just faced a Celtics team that was number 2 in the NBA in the postseason in defensive efficiency. Milwaukee was 5th in defensive efficiency. So Miami's seen the tough defense in recent weeks. LA hasn't. That may give the Heat some kind of an edge. And no one's brought up Iguodala's name yet.
I did.
Iguodala.
It's coming up when we do the MVP odds, guys. Teddy, I've got it circled to talk about the MVP odds.
He can defend on the perimeter. I think he's key in the series, Teddy.
I do
good.
too.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we'll talk. Actually, guys.
And the last thing on Iguodala, but literally, like Iguodala is absolutely is he a Hall of Famer or isn't he?
Yeah.
If the Heat win this title, Iguodala goes to the Hall of Fame. If they don't, he doesn't. You know, he's
I agree.
Playing for his legacy, and I think if they win a title, Iguodala deserves a Hall of Fame. And if they don't, maybe not. He's that much on the edge.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up his name, Teddy, because it's somebody I did want to talk about later when we talk about the MVP odds. 100 to 1 at DraftKings, 300 to 1 at one of the offshores I've seen as of last night. Of course, he snuck in and won it a few years ago with the Warriors, when Curry and Thompson, all those guys are the big name players. It's also funny, Teddy, that you mentioned him as a potential Hall of Fame guy because he was not even on my radar for that, but neither was Spolestra a few weeks ago, and Tony Finn has convinced me of that. And I agree. I think if Spolestra wins this title, he is in. And maybe he brings Iguodala, and we got a 2-for-1 Hall of Fame special riding on this series, maybe with both of them. But let's stick with totals here, and I'll finish up with Rob and Ski. And we got to talk to Rob Vino when it comes to totals because, once again, he is the all-time winningest over-under handicapper in WagerTalk history at WagerTalk.com, all sports combined. Rob, you do well with sides and totals, but you obviously do extremely well with totals over your career. What are you looking at here as far as handicapping this total series overall, in particular game one where we see 217.5?
Well, I could give you one real big number here, Steve, that if you want to follow, you should probably follow. I know you put up the first half side and total before, and I think I saw on the screen there it is 111.5. All right, the last 12 playoff games the Lakers have been involved in this season, first half has gone over 11-1. So 11 of the last 12 playoff games for the Lakers have been first half overs. Again, it's a nice statement to make. The question is, do those games get more than 111.5? And the answer is yes. 10 out of 12 have totaled more than 111.5 in the first half. So the Lakers have been an extremely productive first half team offensively. Certainly the other team has to contribute to get to that type of number. And LA's defense has let opponents contribute to it. So that's a pretty big number. Now, Miami in the Boston series, those first halves in those 6 games went over the total 5 out of 6. So you got quite a run here going where over is concerned. 111.5 might not be enough to stop these two teams. I think, when you break down the math, you're talking about 56 aside. And it just doesn't seem that difficult at this point in time. The only thing that could stop it is if guys come out rusty because of the layoff, but I wouldn't assume that that's going to be the case here. Back to the point, Teddy said something, and I love, like I say, going behind guys because it can generate other thoughts. But Teddy listed the opponents that LA has played so far in the playoffs, those three being Portland, Denver, and Houston. I would consider none of those teams good interior defensively. None. First of all, Houston doesn't even have an interior defense. Second of all, Portland had lost Zach Collins before the series started. So, they've got a center coming back off of injury, playing himself into shape. Not great defensively whatsoever. Portland and Houston, probably two of your worst interior defensive teams in the league. Denver, Jokic is not a defensive threat. And their power forward and small forward position. I mean, Jeremy Grant may be the best interior defender of the bunch on that team. So, while Miami's not big overall, size-wise, they've got some height. But, I mean, overall size in the paint, they don't really have that. But they're fighters on the inside. And I think this would probably be the best interior defensive team that the Lakers will have faced. Again,
Yes.
I don't think it's something that can, neutralize or shut down Los Angeles. They can do better than the other three teams have, though, and I think that's a point to look at here. Somebody else talked about the amount of bodies, I think it was Tony, that Miami has to throw at the Lakers. And if you just want to go out there and send some messages, which, between the ears, guys like Jay Crowder, guys like Andre Iguodala, who's been in this position before, guys like Jimmy Butler, the Miami team, in my mind, wouldn't mind sending messages. If that's the case, and you start counting bodies that they have to throw out there. I mean, Eric Spoelstra had an 8-man rotation in that final game. That 8-man rotation did not include Derrick Jones Jr., it didn't include Kelly Olynyk, and it didn't include Kendrick Nunn. Those three guys, all significant contributors at certain points throughout the year. So they can go 11 deep if they have to. If they want to rack up fouls and they don't want to let layups go for free, Detroit Pistons bad boy style, it won't be. But just saying, they've got a number of people that they can go to show that they're not going to back down. And to tell you the truth, guys, this is the one team that Los Angeles has faced that has the mental toughness. We've talked about it before, that they won't back down. They're not afraid. They're not walking into this thing, scared. Somebody will step in front of LeBron and take a charge on this team at one point during the series. So they've got a lot of things going for them. And again, all that being said, because it sounds like all I'm doing here is playing a Miami hype machine, they're still not the better team in a 7-game series, and they're still going to have difficulty stopping LA from scoring. I think that broken floor, when threes become more available and the way Miami can shoot threes, that benefits them if they can get into that type of pace. But also half court, like Tony mentioned, the way they work the basketball, they're such quick release guys that there always seems to be a guy open for that quick release, whether it be any of the players that we've mentioned. So most of the stuff I'm saying points toward point production. I think that's the way I'd be looking here. I think both of these teams have great offensive advantages to score points here.
Yeah, and Ski, I mean, obviously with the long layoff, that should keep the defenses fresh. But then again, they're in the bubble. They've been there for months now, and you feel like the routine's kind of been more consistent than maybe with travel and the normal NBA Finals. I want to get your closing thoughts here on the matchup before we dig into the MVP props and the player props. Also, Ski, got a question from one of our loyal viewers who's with us every day. Jive Cash, let me pull it up here. Do you think Rondo's trash talk, Ski, can get into the heads of Robinson and Hero? What are your thoughts on Rondo? We haven't talked much about him so far, Ski.
Yeah, for sure. We know Rondo's a trash talker, and those are two very young guys who haven't been here before, so definitely a possibility. But I'm over here smiling because now I'm getting excited because I disagree with some things, and that's when I have fun. So I want to question a few different things. I hear that they have bodies to throw at Anthony Davis. Tony wants to shut me up by any means, but I hear that they have bodies to throw at the Lakers. I mean, I understand what you're saying, where you're going from, or where you're coming from when you say Crowder, Iguodala, and Jimmy Butler, guys like that. But first, I want to say I was on Iguodala. I was on Golden State when they were playing LeBron James. This is not Iggy that was Finals MVP Iggy. Like defense, athleticism is not there. It's not the same, and I don't think that he's going to have the same effect defensively versus LeBron. So I think I can throw that one away. And bodies to throw at Anthony Davis, for one, who even guards him? Like, are we talking about them playing zone and just like trying to rough him up? Are we talking
they're going to play 2-3. You know they're going to play a lot of 2-3.
Okay, so if they're playing 2-3, then it doesn't matter. I mean, he's going to be at the free throw line. When they pass it to him, he's going to open up the offense for everybody else. So I don't see how that helps. Interior defense team, who do they have? They have Bam. Bam.
No, well, they're gonna listen, guys. I think they're gonna look. When they do play man, don't be surprised to see Jimmy Butler and Crowder. They're gonna be manning up Anthony Davis, and they're gonna make him dare him to throw it inside. You're gonna see this happen a lot, in my opinion.
When they play man, who guards Dwight Howard? Who guards Anthony Davis?
I just told you what they're gonna do. They're gonna switch it.
Butler's Crowder. If it's Butler, he's 6 inches shorter. Anthony Davis is going to go over the top all night long.
This is going to be fun, guys. It's really going to be fun because you're going to see this happen. It's exactly what Spoelstra's going to do. He's going to say, "Listen, I dare you to throw it inside," and they're going to throw it inside, and it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be fun. And he wants this chaotic. He wants this to be messy, and he knows. You guys are told. He knows he has to do something. He can't play straight man traditional basketball against the LeBron and Anthony Davis with who he has. It's going to be fun, and that's what you're going to see.
And I'll just finish up really quick. Yeah. I've said how they'll score on the zone. I've said how they'll score on man. The other things I wanted to point out, I mean, Teddy kind of pointed it out a little bit too, but when you're playing zone, especially like sometimes they put Bam up there at the top, you're going to be susceptible to some of these offensive rebounds. And in the playoffs,
they are. Yes.
Lakers are rebounding 29%. I mean, that's 1 out of every 4 shots, 3 or 4 shots. So that's an advantage. And we're talking about, if you're talking about bodies to go and just foul people, I mean, that we can talk about that towards the total. Because, I mean, if you look at the last time they played, they shot 51 combined free throws. And if you're just talking about going to foul people in a free throw shooting contest, I think it leans more towards points as well.
Ski, let me keep it with you, though. You're a great props guy for us as we dig into some of the player props. You just laid out how you think this could play out, and I'll get you, Tony, after this because you kind of disagreed on some of it. Ski, how would you approach some of these play-on-play against guys, assists, rebounds, point props? What are you looking at with some of these matchups?
Well, I'll tell you the one that stands out the most to me, and then I'll maybe double back around after. But the one that stands out to me most, well, I'll check out the rest, is Goran Dragic. I think pick and roll. If Dwight Howard's on the floor, which I think he will be, and the Lakers are going big, they're going to attack him. And if it becomes Dwight against Dragic, I think Dragic scores a good amount of points. I think he comes off the pick and roll and scores a good amount of points. I just see him having success tonight. So I like his points over as probably my favorite.
Yeah, and I'm looking at one of the offshores, right? It's 18.5 over 50. So there's been some action on the over there, Skis. So there's some what I would probably classify as sharp money at this particular book and agreement. Let me pull it up on DraftKings. Dragic is 18.5 minus 20. The sharp book over minus 50. So Ski, there's been some sharp money on Dragic over, at least from what I'm looking at. Tony, would you agree with Dragic over 18.5 points?
I would, without question. That would be. Listen, he led it wasn't Bam who led the team in scoring when they were against Boston, and when Boston did make that one adjustment, that one time we talked about it at length when Smart was picking Dragic up at half court. That was the one game that he didn't score much, but I think he averaged a little over 20 a game, and I think that was the top for Miami. And I don't expect a much differently here. They're not going to waste LeBron on. I think the Lakers are a good defensive team with LeBron and with Davis, but outside of those two, I think they're a pedestrian defensive team, and that's really where, and much like the Clippers as well. You think about who their defenders are. Once you get beyond those elite defenders, that's where the issue comes in. And I can go on and on about even Iggy playing defending in the middle. I think Iggy will man up in the center as well. There's going to be. It's going to be fun to watch, guys, and I just think it's going to be I don't think there's not going to be anything that's pretty in this game. I don't think anything's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be a war. That's me. I think if Miami wants to win it, that's what it's going to be. I don't know if you agree.
Teddy, if you have any play-on-play against players, let me know. But we can also start digging into your thoughts on the MVP props. I mentioned LeBron minus money, Davis 2.5, 3-1 in some locations. Obviously, those are the two keys for the Lakers. It's hard, Teddy, for me to imagine kind of the Super Bowl scenario. We used to do this at Brady and the quarterback props. With the NFL Super Bowl, it's almost always a quarterback. You could sometimes, Teddy, take a guy on the money line. I think Foles was like as high as 6-1 a few years ago when the Eagles won it. And they were 2-1 as a team. I think the Heat are so diverse and spread, Teddy, that it's hard for me to pick a single guy. Butler's 7-1. That gets you a better payoff maybe than the series price. But there's so many other guys that could contribute, like Bam 9-1, that I'm not sure there's a play on guy as a versus playing the team for the series price. But what are your big picture thoughts on the MVP props and also any player props that you might like?
Yeah, let me just run down the odds real quick. I'm looking at the Westgate Superbook right now. Obviously, with any of these props, and props more than sides and totals, there's a dramatic difference on a regular basis between one book and the next. And again, you say 8-1 versus 9-1. How big a deal is that? It's a huge deal, and it adds up. Over 100 bets, it becomes an even huger deal.
It's like a 12% increase.
12-1. So LeBron James is 2-3. He's basically minus 150 to win the MVP. Anthony Davis is plus 275 at 11-4. Jimmy Butler 7-1. Bam Adebayo is 8-1. Goran Dragic is 20-1. And you want to bet anyone else? I'll book it. Because there are only 5 people that have a chance to win.
Teddy, throw out the Hero odds. Yeah. I'm not big on Hero to win it because he doesn't.
Hero's 40-1. He's not winning MVP.
That's probably a real square play. I have a feeling after his 37-point game.
Yeah. And again, that's one game. But to win MVP, you got to do it for 7 games or 6 or 5 or whatever it is.
Steve and Teddy, and you guys, all you guys know, there's politics involved in MVP awards too. Let me tell you right now, I had a big play on D. Williams in the Super Bowl. And when he broke that late touchdown, I know that the San Francisco was packing the line, but when he hits 2 touchdowns, and he was, in my opinion, the MVP of that Super Bowl, who did it go to?
Mahomes.
Of course. So if the Lakers win, that MVP is only going to 1 or 2 players. It's only going to LeBron or it's going to Davis. That's it. So you want to look at Miami, there's where your odds go. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and Teddy,
for Miami, it's the same. It's not going deeper than Dragic.
Yeah,
okay, if he win the series, it's Butler, Adebayo, or Dragic. That's the only 3 choices.
So there you go. You limit that. What you just said is, I agree.
So Teddy, you've got it down to 5 guys: 2 Lakers, 3 Heat. Correct?
Yes, correct. So what I'm saying is that they're long shots. You may as well burn your money. Yeah. It's not happening.
That's true. I agree.
So Teddy, I can't get you on Iguodala at 100-1 DraftKings, 300-1 offshore.
I'll book it too.
No.
That also tells you right there what the square side is on that prop, by the way. The way I mentioned that, as you could tell, he doesn't get enough minutes. I mean, he's playing 10, 12 minutes. He might play a little bit more in this series, as we've talked about. Hero's the interesting one, Teddy, because I agree with you. I'm not backing Hero here, but I think it's a square play because people are going to see that 37-point game, see him at 40-1. But I don't see him getting enough minutes and having enough big games, although he did play better against Boston for several games. Teddy, I think Tony brings up a good point, Teddy, about LeBron and the media. Don't you think he has an inherent extra 5-10% chance of getting it just because it would be the 3rd team he's won a title with, all things equal? And that's why he's minus money versus Davis, who's almost 3-1.
LeBron's better than Davis. LeBron's proven himself in the finals more than Anthony Davis has proven himself in the finals. And again, the books, the odds like to win MVP where there's 20 choices and one guy is going to win, they're huge takeout items for the sports books. These are not positive expectation bets unless you find live long shots. And the best live long shot out there is Dragic. And for Miami to win, because he's 20-1. And for Miami to win, he's got to play at that level. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you're looking at that. But in terms of laying a price with someone to win MVP, no, not going to do it. And if Anthony Davis, who hasn't won playoff MVPs before, has a big couple of games and it's a dominant force, he's just as likely to win as LeBron. Given the price of the 2 guys, I can only take AD because I'm sure as hell not laying minus 150 on anybody to win an MVP in the finals in a series that they may not win.
Yeah, and the way I look at it, too, is I think points dictate, and Davis has a higher point total by about a point every game on the over-unders throughout the playoffs, so he likely could be the higher scorer. Now, I agree that LeBron does more as far as, defense and other factors that maybe the voters don't pay attention to. LeBron will be the MVP, but as you said, Davis could sneak in and win it if he has some big point games. And then again, instead of laying minus 150, you can lay minus 350 on the series and take that uncertainty out and just have the Lakers. Rob, what are your thoughts on some player props, play on play against guys? Feel free to chime in on the MVP odds as well.
Yeah, I think through all of that breakdown by three different guys, you three guys, I mean, the last sentence Teddy said is the only bet I could make if I were going to make. Well, first of all, none of us on this panel here today in this show have said we think the Heat are going to win the series. So throw all the Heat players in the garbage. As far as we're concerned, don't bet any of them because they're not going to win the series. That leaves you with LeBron James or Anthony Davis, and you're not going to lay the number with LeBron James. You're going to take a number with Anthony Davis. And if Anthony Davis wins MVP, he's not sneaking in because he had a couple of big games. Anthony Davis is not sneaking in on anybody. If he wins, it'll be every game was a good game out of him. He's definitely an elite player in the NBA. So you can get plus price with him. He's the only choice. At least in my mind, he's the only choice you could bet for that ridiculous who's going to win MVP. You don't make a hell of a lot of money betting that in most cases. But, you know, and I don't have the player props in front of me, Steve. I want to make a quick point here to what's been going across the screen here from the chat room and from our discussion about how we think this series might be played 100 million ways. We won't know until we see it played out and how these coaches have game planned. But if in basketball, if you're an opponent that cannot match up with a big man who can score, the next best thing is to send a bunch of gnats at that big man. You send a bunch of littles and you try and slap the ball before they can get it up. And you see it a lot more in college basketball. The problem with little guys attacking Anthony Davis and trying to strip him, which Houston is a great example of a team that tries to do that. They just try to strip. They're not going to block your shot. They're not going to play man up with Anthony Davis. The problem with him is he's a ball handler, and it's sometimes difficult. And so is Bam Adebayo, for that matter. So I think both of those guys would be difficult in that regard. But most of the chatter here, what we're talking about, is about Anthony Davis and who's going to guard him and sending a couple of guys at him because you don't have size. It's a tactic. It's a strategy. Whether or not it's a working strategy, we got to watch the game to find out. I mean, you'd have a difference of opinion there. Some people would think it would work. Some people would think it wouldn't work. Only time will tell. But that's the best you can do. When you don't have the player to guard, it's the best you can do. Send quickness at a guy. But the problem, again, Anthony Davis is so unique. You know, this is a guy that was a guard before he grew into his 6'11" body. He was a point guard. So he's got the ball handling skills maybe to even outmatch that.
Yeah, and Ski, I mentioned how Davis had been at 28.5 points, LeBron 27.5 for a lot of the games recently. LeBron's actually 28.5 tonight now, so they're pretty much even. I even see Davis at 27.5 at one of the offshores. DraftKings has them both at 28.5. So your thoughts on that, Ski? They're giving a little bit more love to LeBron. Do you think that's because of the particular matchup here, because they are going to try to double maybe Davis more? Just total points, yeah, 28.5 pretty much for both of them now.
Well, my thought on that whole thing is you pick and decide the way you think the Heat are going to play defense. If you think the Heat are going to play man-to-man, LeBron's your guy. Go over his point total because he's 4-0 straight up versus Miami, and he scored 33 points per game. If you think they're going to play zone, I think Anthony Davis is your man. And I wanted to mention a couple of other props. I was looking them up while everybody was talking. Kuzma hasn't looked so good, and his point total is down all the way to 10. I think it's some value there because, like, even if they're playing zone, he could sit in that corner or sit along the three-point line, and maybe he gets hot. 10 points, I don't think it's too much to ask. Kuzma eventually will wake up and have a good game. It could be tonight. And other than that, Lakers have a lot of size. It won't be as easy as it's been for Bam Adebayo to get those rebounds. His rebound total is at 10.5. I would probably lean under. And for MVP, I agree with the point that I think Steve, you made, and Teddy, that don't take the minus price with LeBron. You might as well take the Lakers if you're going to do that. If you like the Lakers, you would take Anthony Davis. And for the Heat, I would like Dragic. I think he's somebody that can exploit a lot of exploit a lot of the mismatches. So it's either going to be they win because of Bam, and I see Bam winning it too, but I like the value on Dragic. I think he has a shot too.
So as we close out here, guys, Ski has laid it on the line here. 3 in-show wagers that he likes from the props. Anybody want the other side of that? Not just to be an antagonist, Tony, but do you actually disagree with any of the other sides there? Once again, we'll lay it out for the viewers.
Really quickly, run them down again. In game.
Dragic over 18.5 total points, Ski.
Yeah. I agree with that. Go
Adebayo-
ahead.
Kuzma over 10.5.
Yeah, and Adebayo rebounds under.
Under
There we
10 and a
go.
half.
Bam
What was the
under
other
10 and a
one?
half.
What's the other one?
Bam under 10.5 rebounds. Kuzma over 10.5 points. And
I'll
Dragic,
take
which I know you
listen.
agree with this one, Tony, because you said it. Dragic over 18.5. So you guys are
I
in
do,
agreement there.
but to be consistent in my assessment of Ski that he can't do props at all, I'll take opposite of all of them.
So once again, in-show wagers for the antagonistic purpose only. Tony Finn actually agrees with this one because he actually gave it out as well. But once again, Tony and Ski like over 18.5 for Dragic. Ski likes Kuzma over 10.5 and Bam under 10.5. And guys, we'll be back on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, this Friday for Game 2 of the NBA Finals. It's an important show to watch because we'll have a recap, of course, here of Game 1, but we'll also have an advanced look at the matchup for Game 2 and Game 3, which will be Sunday. So be sure to tune in Friday. And, of course, if you miss us live at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on Friday, you can always watch the replay on WagerTalk TV on YouTube, including this show and all other shows, baseball, football, basketball, any sport you like, hockey. It's all there on WagerTalk TV. And a final reminder, Teddy Covers is on noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, every weekday, Monday through Friday with WagerTalk Today. That covers all sports as well. And, of course, all of our best bets right now, WagerTalk.com. For Tony Finn, Teddy Covers, Rob Vino, Ski Profit, I'm Steve Merrill. Please go to WagerTalk.com and get some great winning information, not only for Game 1 tonight, but for baseball, football, hockey, all the other sports that I mentioned. We're back on Friday for Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Great show, guys. Good luck tonight.